Mod B, Introduction. By experiencing various different stages in life, all humans mature due to the accumulated experiences that humble them. 1. Yet, within the confinements of class structures, gender discourse, and societal ideologies, humans have tendencies to develop their own pride and vanity that make them feel detached from genuine connection. 2. Jane Austen, in her 1815 novel Emma, showcases this through the free indirect discourse that narrates these universal predicaments, enabling her responders to not only witness the superficiality of Regency social values, but reflect and understand them as enduring human flaws. 3. Through such narrative voice, the novel achieves its textual integrity, revealing the distinguishing quality of literature to transcend and illuminate the timeless search for humility, self-awareness, and meaningful relationships. Paragraph 1, the half paragraph. While one's pride and vanity are developed through these accumulated experiences, ironically, it is also these experiences that humble one to see the true reflection of themselves. Austen's construction of the novel in the Bildungsroman form allowed her eponymous character Emma to be crafted as emotionally naive and misguided by her confidence. 2. This is showcased in Austen's initial description of Emma's affluence and lack of experience as, quote, the real evils, unquote, followed by another negative connotation, quote, too, unquote, which is repeated in, quote, Emma's power of having rather too much her own way and a disposition to think a little too well of herself, unquote. These foreshadow that her autonomy is unlike the female subservience that was expected from her gender in the Regency period, as seen from the diction of power and her own way. Also, her confidence signified through the diction of think a little too well of herself, ironically, is the disposition that does not work in her favor. However, for she is oblivious to her autonomy that fuels her pride and vanity rather than her honor as a good friend and the town's most favorable matchmaker, she willingly begins meddling with Harriet's potential marriage partners in the name of being a friend. Paragraph 1.5. However, Emma's relationship with Harriet Smith is rooted in her loneliness that came after her governess Miss Taylor's permanent absence. 1. Her merry matrimony is ironically described as a mournful thought and sad business. This symbolizes that from Emma's perspective, even her relationship with Miss Taylor cannot be identified as a genuine friendship, for she was the governess Emma always had and, quote, the mildness of Miss Taylor's temper had hardly allowed her to impose any restraint, quote, which made Emma be, quote, directed chiefly by her own, unquote. Through this unbalanced relationship, Austen highlights that Emma lacks experience in the field of genuine friendship also, as the relationship she is used to is the one where she has superiority and control. Hence, in her selfish attempt to secure companionship and control, Emma distracts herself from Miss Taylor's absence by claiming a new friendship with Harriet. 2. Emma thus also identifies Harriet as, quote, exactly the young friend she wanted, exactly the something which her home required, a sentiment, unquote. The repetition of exactly highlights that Harriet is a distraction, labeling her a sentiment, also symbolizing that matchmaking Harriet has become Emma's new project to distract herself from Miss Taylor's absence, not friendship. Therefore, upon receiving Mr. Martin's proposal, she does not hesitate to jump to the conclusion that, quote, so good a letter, unquote, cannot be written by him but by, quote, one of his sisters, unquote. the high modality language in, quote, I think one of his sisters must have helped him, unquote, and, quote, I can hardly imagine the young man, ... could express himself so well, unquote, symbolizes Emma's vanity being rooted in her, quote, disposition to think too well of herself, unquote. 4. Without considering that she lacks experience, calling even, quote, 16 miles as beyond her daily reach, unquote, she is confident that Mr. Martin is, quote, not Harriet's equal, unquote, and is hasty to reject Mr. Martin with her own penmanship, who in Knightley's words is, quote, is as much her superior in sense as in situation, unquote, which juxtaposes Harriet, who has, quote, no settled provision at all, unquote. Austen showcases through Emma's display of vanity that juxtaposes her sense of reality and the ultimate reality that's shown by Knightley's anger that Emma is emotionally naive and misguided by her confidence rooted in her lack of experience. Paragraph 2. Experiencing social ideologies can be limiting but also humbling in nature. 1. Austen highlights this with Emma's maturity that comes with her accumulated experiences that she continuously encountered to realize that, in her words, quote, she was a fool, unquote. 2. Austen shows Emma's belated realization to come upon hearing Harriet's admission to her feelings for Knightley, which Emma labels as, quote, a union to distance every wonder of the kind, unquote. This is ironic, as she is the one who initially misled Harriet, making her believe, quote, that more wonderful things had happened, matches of greater disparity had taken place than between Mr. Frank Churchill and me, bracket Harriet, unquote. Here, Austen's use of italics on more and greater that emphasizes the syntax more and greater symbolizes that they were the very ideas planted by Emma. Realizing that it is none other than herself who blinded Harriet to reality, Emma overwhelmingly remarks with the accumulation of how in, quote, how improperly had she been acting by Harriet, how inconsiderate, how indelicate, how irrational, how unfeeling had been her conduct, unquote. Through such listing and repetition of how and what, that emphasizes her frustrated exclamation that came with the revelation of her own vanity, marks Emma's turning point. This is significant within the novel's Bildungsroman structure, as Emma's self-reproach signals her progression from vanity and social manipulation towards humility and moral maturity. 4. Thereby, Austen allows Emma to seize this opportunity to accept that despite her denial that, quote, greater disparity, unquote, in social class can be mended with one's autonomous decisions, there are limitations in social classes and limitations on how much control one can have when it comes to changing one's given status and fate in the rigidly stratified society of Regency England. Conclusion. Austen's Bildungsroman narrative voice and stylistic features in Emma, therefore, encourage the responders to reflect on the limiting extent to which Regency England confined individual autonomy, but also on the universal human condition where maturity is forged through accumulated experience and self-reflection.